Hey, everybody. Hey, I want to thank you on behalf of James and myself. Hey, hopefully you enjoyed Hustle City USA podcast. Hey, we're going to be throwing out some great topics. If you haven't already, subscribe, follow, like, do all of those things. We're going to throw out some great stuff. And as always, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for paying attention to what I got to say and James has to say. I'm out.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast where we motivate, inspire, and drive with stories from entrepreneurs from around the country. That's right, folks. Straight from their mouths to your ears, this is Hustle City, USA.
Why corporate America may not be for you.
You know, I think a lot of people feel that way. Even the people who thought corporate America was for. First off, I guess we should define what corporate America is or isn't.
And I'd forgotten. I actually had this conversation with somebody else the other day. The working world has changed drastically. I mean, it used to be you could work 20, 40 years, you had a great benefit package, all that stuff, and now that's not the same for a lot of folks in corporate America.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing is the wool has been pulled off of our eyes, so to speak. You know, when this country was founded, it was founded on, like most of us know, on immigrants who came over here, hard-working, and somebody had to do the grunt work. Somebody had to do somebody had to lay the pipe. Somebody had to lay the railroad tracks, the streets, the roads. Over time, had to build the industries, and there was captains of industries.
What about it? Not to take us off topic, and I hate to think this might be a racial statement, but what if the immigrants wouldn't have came in mass, and this country would have been founded by the actual American Indians? Do you think we'd all be a lot more organic and still smoking pipes and stuff?
I can't predict the future, but I would probably say yeah. But they had no intense incentive or desire to change what they had. Had we not have come, we would probably be. They would probably be living the same way they are now.
Right.
If no one had infiltrated their space, right, so to speak. I mean, we go and we find these people in the rainforest of Brazil who've been living thousands of years, and they're running around in loincloths and leaves and eating.
But they're happy.
Well, I guess
we come and take their trees.
You know, happiness is always relative. Are they really happy? How do we know? What do we base their happiness on? They have nothing to compare to.
Right.
We just have things to compare to.
Right.
We look at our neighbor and you go, well, my neighbor has that car, so I got to get that car because I have to be better than my damn neighbor. And and then we look at other countries and we look at other people. It's just human nature, and I would suspect that regardless of education, regardless of language, and regardless of where someone lives, human nature is inside of us all. So there's Aborigines that live in New Guinea or Brazil.
Wait, I think they're on Australia, the Aborigines.
No, I'm just saying across the globe. Aborigine, New Guinea, all of these different tribes.
I'm with you.
All over the world.
That's funny.
Feel exactly the same. Human nature does not change. That's the crazy thing about when you watch television and you see people who want to change the world or change mankind.
Right,
right. Hey, we've had millions of years of this, and you're not going to change that humans. And I'm going to give you a secret. And if you know this guy, Milton Friedman, he was on Phil Donahue way back in the day, right? You remember Phil Donahue?
I remember Phil Donahue. I know the name Milton Friedman. I'm not.
Yeah, so Milton Friedman was an economist, really great economist, and he worked for several different administrations. I'm not sure if he actually worked in the administrations,
right? But
I know that he was an ear for them.
The word administration to me sounds like nobody works in an administration. It's like,
yeah,
we need to have an administration. This is the Hustle City administration.
Hey, I do. I like administration. Hey, that sounds like a fancy term. So Milton Friedman, anyway, he was an economist, right? He was known for taking the complex and making it simple, where the average person could find economics interesting. They could find economics where they could understand it, because a lot of people who are really, really smart at things enjoy showing you they're smart using these big words.
Right.
What they don't realize is they're not making a fan out of you when you try to alienate them.
Right.
So anyway, I digress back to what we're talking about. So Milton Friedman, he was on Phil Donahue's show.
Right.
And a lady stood up in the crowd, and older lady, from Midwest, I'm certain, with that accent she had. And she basically said, hey, what about all these corporate greed? You know, they're just taking our money, and, you know, all the poor people suffer, and America is super greedy, and these rich people are greedy, and capitalism is greedy. And Milton Friedman said to this lady, he said, ma'am, tell me a place on earth where people aren't greedy. Do you think China's not greedy? Do you think Russians not greedy? Do you think you're not greedy? Look, all greed is one operating in their own self-interest. And throughout history, everyone has operated the same exact way, off of their own self-interest. Right. And it's no different than with Mother Teresa. Her self-interest just happened to be that it made her feel good to take care of people. Well, these Wall Street guys, they feel like, you know, taking care of themselves. Well, taking care of themselves, but building this wealth, they are taking care of their family. So their
family and their clients.
I'm not here to disparage either side.
But did you see the trending news topic the other day that said the top 1% now control like 82% of all wealth or something like that?
Here's what I got to say about that. Number one, I love having the opportunity to be able to be that one.
That's true.
That's number one. I got to say that. Number two, I have to say that we live in the greatest time in history. Let me back up. I didn't say this. Gary Vee said it, but I'm going to agree with him, Gary Vaynerchuk. He said the odds of you being born are astronomical. It's like winning the lottery 10 times in a row.
Right.
So you should just feel blessed, number one, that you're on this planet.
That's right.
And then you should feel doubly blessed that you are in a country that has the freedom to choose and do things that nowhere else in the world. People are dying to come here, literally, right?
That's right. We wouldn't be podcasting from a rainforest. I don't
we would
it
not
would
be. Maybe we would. It'd be a little bit different. So, what was the question again?
Well, I don't know.
There you go, two ADDs. Anyway.
We were talking about the top 1%.
Yeah, top 1%, right? And so I was saying that, exactly. These 1%ers, right?
Right.
That has never been, it's always been the case. Let's go back in history and all the way back to Akbar, richest man in history.
Right.
I think they translated the value. If he was alive today, adjusted for inflation, he would have been close to a trillionaire. He controlled most of the world's gold, Akbar. The present-day Afghanistan, Pakistan, all of those stands. Anything that was a stand, he controlled everything. Which is where
I had a football coach named Stan.
Hey, Stan. And Stan Lee, right? The comic book. So I don't think that there has ever been in any society, when you take it down to its micro level, there's always going to be a leader, and there's always going to be an underling. Now, it doesn't always behoove the leader to make the underling feel less than them, because they aren't. At the end of the day, they're all humans, regardless. You strip away everything that person who's at the 1%er, and you put them in a room with nothing, and detach them from everything, and you put them in a room with anybody else.
Right.
On a humanistic level, they're exactly the same. Now, he may have more knowledge. He may be better coped to deal with stress. Some people are not coped with it.
But basic needs
is the same.
Food, air, water, shelter, love.
And really, what else do we need as humans? What do you need? We all need the same five things.
The simple
We need to feel loved, belonged, cared for. All of those basic need things, like sustainability things, right? Anything past that,
it's just extra.
It's just you looking at the Joneses going, why can't I have that?
Right.
So then you have to disparage them because they have it.
Right.
Or because however they got it, whether they got it for working or somebody just gave it to them.
Sure.
And they did not deserve it. So what? You shouldn't be worrying about what that person.
So what about the gap between the 1%ers, the widening gap? Because in that article it went on to say that historically, there's been less of a gap between the 1%ers and the other 99.
So what they don't talk about in these things, I haven't seen this. Everything that I say, I literally got out of my car, come in here. James, you said this topic, and I said, I'm ready to roll. I'm always on. I have to say this about that topic, that anyone who is living in this day and time, like I said, this is the best time to live in any period. It is the safest. Now, whether you believe it or not, this is the safest time in history.
I've read about
this
that.
Is a fact. You can go to the FBI, CIA, all those people who gather data.
Right.
We live in the safest time in history.
Right.
Right?
Because most of us are armed now.
Yeah. I know. Yes, it could be right. Exactly. So if we're safe as far as like protection, like against foreign things.
Yeah, against
We're,
disease
diseases. We're living longer. All of those things collectively better than any time ever.
Sure.
So now you got to say this is what if you strip away the money, the shit we don't need, and then you say, how far is our gap? Does that person who has $1 billion, is his water any better than my water? Is his air any cleaner than my air? Does his cell phone work any different than my cell phone?
His water may be better depending on.
Yeah,
if
he
he's
buys
got a
this
little
raw
reverse
water
or something.
craze. This bullshit water craze and raw water. Like, hey, if people want to buy, have you heard this?
No, I haven't. Go ahead.
Yeah, this raw water that they're selling to people. It's literally that's supposedly out of the ground, an artesian well, and it's not filtered. It's not all that chemically, and they put it in a jug and they sell it. I'm not shitting you. $30 a gallon.
For earth water.
For earth water. Shit, I'm going to go dig me a hole and start pumping some water out of the ground and packaging that shit up.
A lot of people have wells just north of us here.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no reason you and I can get a small piece of land and drill a well.
It's crazy what you can tell people, and there are things that seem like they should be true.
Right.
Just based on your thought process. Like you would think like natural water should be better for you.
Right.
If it comes out of the ground, it's naturally filtered. That's not necessarily true.
It depends on what trace minerals.
Yeah. Well,
there.
there's so many things. Like what is, there could be an animal that died in there, a couple of years ago. I mean, there's so many things. There's just so many things. So back to this gap.
Right.
I say the gap in sustainability things, the foods, the waters, everything, the things that you need is not that big. It's closer. It used to be. Right. So if you were a king, you had access to water, you had access to food. Or maybe when you were, lived out in the forest in Sherman Forest, you didn't. I just think, or wherever you had, it was a lot harder for you to find these things.
Right.
Water wasn't as safe. Animals and all these other things and travel and all of those things weren't. But now you think, let's look at it this way. I can get up. You can be the poorest of the poor, even living on the street. In the city of Houston, there are 256 locations that you can go and take a shower, get something to eat, and get something to drink.
How the hell do you know that?
Because I serve on a board of a nonprofit, so we kind of keep up. They kind of keep up with this
stuff. Can you
stuff.
get me a list of those?
Yeah, I can. Most of them are churches.
Right.
So talking about this stuff.
Right.
When you think about who is responsible for taking care of the destitute, the people who don't have it for whatever reason.
Right.
Mental issues. They just down on their luck. Right. Whose responsibility is it really to take care of that person? Is it our responsibility as humans to take care of these people?
I would say yes. I don't think as a governmental agency, but as people, we need to take care of each other.
See, there's where you nailed it. Right. Yes, it is. Humanity should take care of these people.
Right.
The government is not a human.
Right.
It is a collection of people who decide on what they do or don't do.
I mean, if I someday need water or something, I would hope you help me out, and I would have to go.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that.
Probably not, because I didn't have any water here today for the show.
So
I had some crackers. But
yeah, there you go. Man, this is such a great topic to talk about because there's so many people who bitch about not having.
Let me spread it out a little further, though. So you're talking about the one percenters, the billionaires, trillionaires around the world that have all the wealth, and then us in modern-day society and are homeless and destitute. But what about the third world country people that still have to walk for clean water, don't have access, that are not downtrodden because of homelessness issues or something? They're just living in...
Well, I would tell people that live.
We need to go there and build a Walmart or something.
What I would say to that is, be lucky you live in the United States.
Right.
Stop. It goes back to stop bitching about what your neighbor has, and that 1%ers are making more, and there's 1% controls everything. Right. You still can watch your football game. You could go drink beer. You could pretty much free to do whatever you want.
Right.
There's all these freedoms. It's always like. People are always looking at what they don't have. You're naturally inclined. Your mind is programmed to look for negative, never to positive, because it's the negative your mind is programmed to protect you from.
Yes,
it doesn't need to protect you from anything that's good. So it's always, we could have everything. All those people, we could be totally even.
Right.
Everybody in the United States, I know we're coming up. We've got 1.5 minutes. I'm going to break it in, this end part. We could have, literally, have exactly the same. and we would still need to find something to bitch about. Really,
we would.
Yes. So people need this. I want to close it out with this, because we talked about this before.
Right.
That you need to, number one, feel grateful for what you got, whatever it is. If you just are alive,
right,
you should be number one grateful for that.
Well, and the great thing about our country, and I think you alluded to it earlier, is we all have the opportunity to strive to that 1% if we want to, or
exactly,
or to get in the 5% or whatever. Nobody has to sit in the 98th percentile.
I'm with you. Man, well, James, man, I really enjoy it. I like how we, just throw these topics out. I know we promised that we would do this in 15 minutes, and I promised you I would do it in 15 minutes. And that I would try to make it entertaining. Right. Man, we hope everybody enjoyed
sounds like
the
something
show.
I believe you've said other times in your life. I'm going to keep this to 15 minutes and keep it entertaining.
Yeah, well, no, it was more like 3 minutes, but I sure did make it entertaining in those 3 minutes.